from different parts of the world. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. So today I'm delighted to welcome you to another one of our special issue series events. So the special issue series is where we bring you in conversation with guest editors of special issue journal special issues that are of interest to critical management studies community. So, special issues often represent a fantastic opportunity to publish critical work. It helps personally. A lot of my own publications are in special issues. I always find that they help to kind of focus the mind and also give me a deadline that I can work towards to actually get on and get those papers written and submitted that I've been procrastinating over for a long time. So would really encourage people, if you haven't submitted a special issue, to submit a special issue, and if you have, then you already know all the benefits. So this is, I believe, our fourth event in the special issue series, and it's proving quite popular. So welcome. And today, it's actually, I'm delighted to tell you about a special issue that I'm also involved with as a co-editor, and this with Cara and Thomas and Gabriella. So Cara and Gabriella are here today as well. Thomas fortunately couldn't make it, and it's a special issue of organization, and it's about expert futures, re-examining the role of experts and expertise. Before we kick off, just a few household points. First of all, you'll have a Q&A. You'll see that you have the chat function, and you'll also see the Q&A function. So we will have a discussion at the end of the session. It's a 1-hour session, and we'll talk for a bit about the special issue, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A. So, but feel free to post your questions at any point in time in the Q&A function. Just remember to do it in the Q&A function, which looks like little speech bubbles at the top or bottom of your screen, rather than in the chat function. That's just to make it easier for us to spot the questions and make sure that we address anything. But you can post them at any time, and we'll come back to them at the end. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk about experts. So this is how the session will run. I already said there will be a Q&A at the end. I'll first tell you a little bit about the journal organization, because it is a special issue in organization. So it's really important when you're writing for a special issue to also write for the journal in which the special issue is to be published. So I'll tell you a bit about organization. Some of you will know a lot about organization. Some of you might not know much about organization. So hopefully that will catch everyone. Then Cara and Gabriella will talk about the special issue itself. Then I will talk a bit more about how to submit and practicalities, and then, as I said, we'll have the discussion at the end. Okay, so first of all, a bit about organization. So if you don't know organization, you really ought to get to know organization, because it's a fantastic journal. And of course, it's also the main sponsor of CMS and Touch. So it would be wonderful because CMS and Touch is wonderful, so is organization. And one of the first things to notice about the organization is its subtitle. So the full title, as there on the image on the right, is Organization, the Critical Journal of Organization Theory and Society. So the word critical is highlighted, and that's really important. Organization is a critical journal, so any work that you submit to organization ought to be critical too. And the second thing to notice, importantly, in relation to our special issue, that it's a journal of organization theory and society, right? So whatever paper you write about experts has to be not only critical, but also about organizations and organizing. This is quite fundamental for the success of your paper in the special issue. Okay, so these are Patrizia Zanoni and Marcos Barros, who are the editors-in-chief of organization. And I'm showing you their picture for several reasons. One is to show you that they're real-life people, and they're lovely and they don't bite. And secondly, because they're the editors-in-chief, and Ultimate Decision Publications, as always, editors-in-chief responsibility to some extent. And also because the slides on organization are actually their slides that they allowed us to use. So it's an acknowledgement and thanks to them. Okay, so what does organization publish? It publishes a range of empirical and theoretical papers. So it's absolutely fine, also for the purposes of this SI, that whether you want to write a conceptual piece or an empirical piece, both are fine. But more importantly, perhaps, are those things highlighted on the slide. So I already mentioned critical, absolutely fundamental. It's a critical piece. Goes hand in hand with reflective and imaginative, right? So if it's just critical, it actually would be quite depressing and could be a bit arrogant. Once critical is combined with reflective, it acquires a different quality because you're also aware, you're not just critiquing others, but you're also aware of your own limitations and your own positioning. And imaginative gives hope because, if we just critique, if we just destroy, then there is nothing left. But imagination gives life to hope and alternative possibilities. It has to speak to challenges of our time, and I think experts, a special issue on experts very much does so. How do we, in these times of crisis, reimagine experts and expertise? Because, if you only have to think about the pandemic to realize just how important expertise and experts are, and yet they're constantly challenged. And Kara will say more about this later on. It's international. The journal is international in scope and vision, so welcomes perspectives from around the world, welcomes theoretical traditions, empirical methodological tradition from around the world, and encouragingly so. There needs to be a theoretical contribution to our understanding of organization, organizing, what I already mentioned. It has to be about organizations and organizing broadly defined, but it has to, and it has to make some sort of theoretical contribution. So even if it's an empirical chapter, a paper, sorry, you need to come back to your theoretical framework and then say something about how it helps to move on our understanding of theory or conceptualization, what you're actually writing about. Okay. So what distinguishes the organization? Again, pushing the envelope. So anticipating emerging issues and facilitating conversations. So it's not just about pushing the envelope. Again, it's about both critique and imagination, right? So you're not just rehearsing the same old things that everybody's used to hearing and seeing, but you move on the thinking in some substantial way, and you're talking on important issues. But again, experts and expertise and reimagining that counts as that. So in a way, the special issue makes it easier to say, yes, it is an important topic because, look, there is a special issue on that topic. It unsettles. So again, it's not just rehearsing the same old arguments or thinking, but it's, it interrogates things that are taken for granted. It calls attention to power dynamics. It questions them, it challenges them, it makes perhaps people feel uncomfortable because they're reading something they're not used to. And it includes, so again, what I already said about it being a global outlook, organization is a global team, and it welcomes various perspectives, so it's pluralistic in its outlook. Okay, so who do the authors of organization write for? So it is about organizations organizing, therefore it is for management and organizational scholars, but also more broadly for social scientists from all other disciplines, because organization studies is a very multidisciplinary cross social science field. But particularly for those who are interested in critical work, so in non-managerialist, non-functionalist, non-positivist perspectives. But those within that, it's a very broad scope. So there are lots of different critical perspectives, and all are welcome, from Marxist and feminist to post-capitalist to neo-materialist, critical realist, postmodernist, whatever. The important thing that it's critical. As long as it's critical, it will resonate with the readership. Okay, for those of you who are interested in figures, here are some of the figures on organization. It's quite a busy journal. About 30% of papers are published in special issues or submitted special issues. And of course, this is a special issue, so it does special issues regularly, and it's a 20% acceptance rate. And of course, the flip side of that means it's an 80% rejection rate. In line with other journals, a lot of these rejections happen at the desk stage. So it's really important. That's where it's really important to get that fit with the journal on a special issue, right? This can vary, of course, for special issues, depending how popular special issue is. You know, this may be higher or lower. So, and we don't know, of course, how popular the special issue is going to be until we've seen the submissions. So the first decision you normally hear at an average of 63 days, which is quite quick. But again, it can vary for a special issue depending on how many papers are received. Okay, and now I will pass over to Cara to talk about the special issue.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alex. As Alex said, we felt it was really important to sort of set the scene, first of all, the context of the journal that we're locating this special issue in, because there is an alignment, which will become clear in a moment, between the focus and the sort of premise that the organisation has as a journal, and with that, therefore, what we have as a focus as well for this special issue on experts and expertise. And we argue, and we would, I suppose, that there's a really good fit between the two. So we thought it would also be useful if you're all right to move on the slide, please. I know Alex is in control of these at the moment. Thank you so much. What we thought might be useful is to give you a little bit of the kind of origin story, like with some kind of Marvel superhero, of where this special issue sort of came from, really. And the reason for doing that is because I think it very much informs what you see in the call for papers that you've got for this special issue. So I suppose it's appropriate that I'm talking about this because I suppose I was the catalyst behind the beginnings of all of this. I have a sort of heritage of writing about professions in particular, and yet I was broadening my scope in terms of what I was interested in to start to write about experts and the challenges involved in that. And to be frank, was struggling to kind of find places to kind of locate that work. I particularly was kind of just kind of beginning to grapple with some of the ideas, and so therefore wanted to go to conferences and present this stuff and see what the community could kind of sort of feed back to me, and yet couldn't find anything appropriate. So I took matters into my own hands and thought, well, I'll run a sub-theme at the EGOS conference on experts, and we'll see how this goes and who else is interested in these issues that I'm trying to write about and publish around. So I was, I suppose, the starter. I then contacted Alex because we'd had some dealings with one another before then, and I knew she was interested in some of these issues too, and she came on board. And then through Alex, the introduction was made to Thomas, who, as Alex says, unfortunately couldn't be with us today. And then we pulled together the call, elements of which are still there actually within the special issue call. And I suppose the real tipping point then was to see, well, what happens with the sub-theme itself. It's all fine to kind of put together a call and get that accepted, but you need submissions. And we were really pleased to see that there were a range of submissions given to us of a really good quality, dealing with a lot of different issues in relation to experts and expertise, and from people who had who were on very different paths in terms of their kind of career. You know, we had some of the kind of stalwarts of this kind of literature and this kind of work, right the way through to mid-career, early career and PhDs. So it was obviously reassuring from our point of view that there was still interest in this across the spectrum of kind of scholars looking at this issue, and that the quality of the work that was being produced was really good. And we had an excellent kind of conversation around some of those issues. And that, I think, the kind of submissions and what we actually got in was the impetus behind moving this further, rather than just saying, well, we all had a lovely time and that's that. We felt actually there's scope here to do a special issue on this because of what we've received and how good it was and the conversations that we had. And as Alex has pointed out, that there was also a good fit between what we were trying to do and what we were trying to kind of focus in on and what organisation tries to do as well. And so that link up then began, which is where Gabriella, thankfully, also joins the team in with us, because as Alex observes, we were very mindful that we were a bunch of Northern Europeans. We wanted to broaden that sort of cultural and geographical scope of what we were doing as well. And so we're very grateful to Gabriella joining us too at that point. If we can move to the next slide, please, Alex. Thank you very much. So with that in mind, ultimately, what the special issue is about, and Alex sort of alluded to this a little bit. Oh, back a bit, thank you. I think what drove us to begin to start to look at this is what we felt was emerging within experts and expertise, sort of broad sort of patterns and tendencies that we felt meant that organizations, studies as a discipline, needed to kind of pull experts and expertise back into the spotlight to have a good look at and unpick and critically analyze what was going on here. And the reason for that was we felt there was a sort of paradox beginning to really emerge, which on the one hand, you had a real growth in experts and expertise, a broadening of what we meant by that, a much more heterogeneity, more people wanting that status and using that moniker for themselves, an increasing sort of appreciation that we were going to need experts and expertise to handle the big problems that we're all facing, whether that's climate change, whether that's technological development, whether that's pandemics and medical issues, whether it's changes in our politics or our economy. You know, you have all that developing on one hand that perhaps may be quite positive for experts and expertise. But on the other hand, what you were also seeing was growing kind of challenge, growing for some crisis or demise of experts and expertise and their status, really that questioning coming through from sort of the more kind of right wing anti-intellectual kind of movements at the most severe end of the spectrum, but equally perhaps at the lower end of the spectrum, still a lot of sort of questioning of the legitimacy, the relevance, and the knowledge base of experts and expertise. And we thought this paradox that is coming through, it needs to come back under the spotlight. It requires that urgent attention for this sort of critical analysis. And therefore, we think in relation to the sort of special issue, this allows us to explore quite a few things in relation to this, either the sort of paradoxical treatment that we see of experts and expertise in organisational context, the implications for this for expert futures in and around organisations, and even quite frankly, to really sort of stop and problematise and critically assess the organisational role of experts and expertise in organisations, and also how those experts and expertise may be organised or are organised as well. Within that sort of premise and aim, we think there is also the scope to take a quite sort of internal look at these things and trying to unpick the complex organisational dynamics involving experts and expertise and their own sort of influence against this backdrop of paradox and change and uncertainty, etc. But equally, there is that more external, focus of how experts kind of deal with the outside, their impact around organisational politics, structures, working lives, other stakeholders as well. So again, we've got both, we think, potentially captured with this special issue. If we can move to the next slide, please. Now, some of you sat on this call may be thinking that's lovely. Thanks very much for kind of highlighting those things, but that's still quite a broad kind of scope. And I suppose the argument we'd make back is, yes, it is, but we think it's necessarily so got that broadness to it because it is reflective of where we're at with this particular topic at the moment. So, for instance, we don't make any major attempt to try and define experts and expertise. It's purposely left quite open because we think it is reaching this juncture in particular where it is open and subject to debate, analysis, critique, and maybe even reframing and reimagining as well. Reflective then also, of course, of the emphasis of organisation, keeping it broad in scope means also we appreciate a more sort of pluralistic take on this topic. So as Alex said, conceptual and empirical papers welcome, different theoretical traditions, analytical perspectives, methodological approaches, and particularly diverse contexts, whether that's the diversity of what experts we're dealing with and context in relation to that, but also broader than that in terms of cultural context and geographical contexts. We're particularly mindful of wanting to, again, not actually be too narrow in relation to that. However, there is an element of focus, obviously, again, as Alex alluded to, because we are a special issue, quite rightly, in organisation. That context of organisations and organising is there, albeit broadly defined as well. However, and I think this is probably where the call for papers for the special issue has kind of moved on from what we were trying to do with the kind of conference sub-theme. We appreciate that we've got this broad scope. So to give some kind of structure, what we have tried to do is provide 3 themes for people who are interested in this special issue to have a think about in relation to their own work. The 3 being theorising experts and expertise, organising experts and expertise, and expert work in and around organisations. On that note, I'm going to hand you over to Gabriella, who's going to talk about each of those 3 themes in a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Cara, and also thank you and thanks Alex and Thomas for inviting me to be part of this special issue. So I will talk very briefly about these 3 themes, also because we have in the call, as you can see, many questions that can help you guiding what we expect in the special issue in this very broad discussion, but we proposed some questions that may guide you. So the first theme is about theorizing and conceptualizing experts and expertise. As Cara mentioned, we are totally open for reimagining concepts and also thinking about relationship between traditional concepts as knowledge, professions, professionals, and experts and expertise. In this theme is also where we expect the more critical approach, for example, discussions about anti-racism, feminist approaches, post-colonial, post-humanist critics, and other types of approaches that can also help us go further in this theorizing process about experts and expertise. Alex, can you please change for the next one? The second theme we thought about is organizing experts and expertise. So the discussion here is much more about how experts and expertise are organized and also organizational aspects of experts and expertise. So we are thinking about, for example, comparing different regions, different geographies, cultural contexts, the role of experts in different places, the implications of organizational aspects of experts and expertise, structures, political elements, and so on. So the idea here is to think about how experts and expertise are organized, and we also look for a more comparative approach thinking about this specific issue. And you can find many other specific questions in the call. And can you please go to the next one? And finally, the third issue is about expert work in and around organizations. So the idea here is to understand how expert works, how is it organized inside the organization, and also the main challenges that affect the work of experts. And this has to do what Cara mentioned about the paradoxes around the expertise right now. So, for example, how do these many challenges and crises, political crisis, pandemic crisis, the denialism, the democratic backsliding all around the world, how do this kind of crises affect how experts work and how they are organized also, and the expertise is organized. So as you can see, we have different types of expectations here, more theoretical ones or empirical ones, more critical ones, and you can think about what fits better in the kind of research you have been doing. Thank you. Now Alex will talk a little bit more about how we expect the special issue to be organized.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Gabriella, and thanks very much, Cara. Okay, so back to organization. So hopefully these various themes and ideas for the special issue have given you something to think about. You find them inspiring. And remember, this is not the themes that we've shown you. They're not exclusive. So they're suggestions, they're ideas. But if you have different ideas that fit the remit of the special issue and fit the remit of the journal, then go for it. And if you're not sure, come and talk to us. Okay, so remember though that you're writing for organizations, so we come full circle back. You're writing for the special issue, but you're also writing for organizations. So this is a kind of a useful checklist to check the fit and make sure that that you're on the right track. So does your work enter in conversation with the journal? Does it fit organization? Is it critical? Are you sensitive to power relations and asymmetries? Are you reflexive? We already talked about this in the beginning. So does your paper challenge common ways of thinking about the phenomenon at hand? You need to push that envelope, yeah, and you need to challenge the orthodoxies. And does it take us beyond what we already know? Can you make that theoretical contribution? Are these ideas important? Yeah. Again, the fact that it's a special issue should help, because it's about a kind of a timely issue surrounding experts and expertise. But within that, are your ideas important about the experts and expertise? And is there novelty? So can you make that contribution? Oops. And in terms of submission practicality, so the deadline is 1st of February 2024, so coming up, but still plenty of time to write that paper. You'll need to submit via the organization's Scholar One manuscript system and indicate that this is a submission specifically for the expert special issue. And be mindful of the journal guidelines. So the overall organization submission guidelines will apply, so look them up. Things like maximum length for papers. So for organization, it's a maximum of 10,000 words, including references. So do stick to those, especially as papers tend to grow. During the review process, you don't want to be starting with more than 10,000 words. Okay, and now back to Cara for leading us on Q&A. And I will stop sharing so we can actually see each other.
Okay, fantastic. Right, let me head to the chat. Don't see anything yet, but we'll give people a minute to absorb the detail we've just rattled through in that half an hour. So I'll give everyone a bit of a breath and a chance to type in what they want to ask. See what comes through. The only thing I'd say is there's no silly question either. If there's anything burning, that you think I really still don't understand a particular element or whatever, please ask. Don't feel you can't. This is definitely the forum in which to do that. And
if people prefer to ask orally rather than typing, I think we can probably figure out how to switch on the microphone as well. Perhaps our presentation was so comprehensive that, that we have addressed. Oh, hold on. I think
we've got something here. So yes. First question that has come through: does the study of consultants as experts on organising or organisational issues fall within the remit of this issue? Gabby's already nodding. I would nod as well. Yes. Again, this is what we mean by the kind of the balancing act between giving you a broad scope but having some kind of focus. So we don't want to be too prescriptive about what we mean by expert. It's the point is that expert has become a much more heterogeneous and broad category. So I would argue that yes, consultants can fall within that realm. But again, it's about taking that critical stance, that kind of exploration in relation to that. So second question that's come through: would it be of value to send an abstract through to you to see if the topic would be of interest for the issue? What's the usual protocol here? Alex, do you want to?
Okay, yeah, so I guess it's up to us as special issue editors, and I think personally I'd be happy to look at an abstract, but I wouldn't want to read the whole paper before then, because that goes a bit beyond. So I would be happy to look at an abstract to see, just to comment on fit and level of interest. I don't know how you feel, Cara and Gabriela.
Yeah, I have a similar approach, as you say, nothing more than an abstract just because of workload kind of points, but and certainly, you know, wanting to sort of give you a steer, I suppose, as best we can. So yeah, I think that's fine. And I know some people have contacted and done that previously to just run ideas past us, and we're open to that. That's no problem at all. Next question that has come through, they're all coming in now, you see. Once we break the barrier, somebody else comes through. Can you define again what organization means by critical? Apologies,
Wow.
I may come to you again. Although it's not an easy one to answer.
Well, how long do we have? Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question because the meaning of critical, of course, is also contested within the critical communities. But I would say it's something that does what I was talking about earlier, that pushes the envelope, that steps outside of the box, yeah, that challenges conventions, that questions the assumptions that people take for granted, that proposes alternatives to how things are normally done. So often within critical management studies communities, critical means also being critical of management, yeah, in some shape or form, not necessarily of individual managers, but more of the structures and the dominance of sort of managerial thinking and managerial assumptions that we all live with, being critical of neoliberalism, capitalism, the prevailing sort of ideas and discourses of our time that actually end up oppressing and excluding and marginalizing and causing violence to people that don't quite fit the expected ideal molds. So I don't know if that helps and answers the question, and feel free to chip in, Cara and Gabriela, if you want to add or if you want to disagree, because of course it's up. The definition of critical is also up for grabs.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree. I think certainly it was the starting point, I think, with some of the discussions we had with one another about experts and expertise, is that the more mainstream stuff has just become a bit accepting of what we mean by that. And yet we felt actually it's not so clear. And there's all these tensions and problems and contradictions. So actually that's fruitful to sort of sit and unpack and problematize and take that step back. And I suppose, yeah, critical allows us to do that rather than just sort of say there's this accepted status of expert, let's look at them, whereas we're, I think, starting from the premise of there isn't, so let's start to pull that apart. What do we mean, and what does that imply, really?
Yeah, I guess so. To bring it back, as you're doing, Cara, to experts and expertise, you don't, for starters, you don't take experts and expertise for granted, right? You don't take for granted that they are necessary. You don't take for granted that we know what they mean. You don't take for granted that, statements that we've witnessed recently of we're all fed up with experts, we don't need experts anymore. Yeah, so you kind of probe behind those assumptions, statements, go, well, why people are making them? Yeah, why is the government saying that people have had enough of experts? What agendas are they trying to push through by doing that? And equally, when people claim themselves to be experts, what are their agendas? What are they actually trying to do? Who do particular forms and understandings of expertise actually exclude? Who cannot be an expert under current definitions and conditions? What implications does it have? And shall we reimagine those concepts in such ways that are more inclusive, empowering, progressive, etc.?
Yeah, definitely.
I would only to add something. I think that we also want people to challenge the theoretical grounds about it and the concepts, because maybe experts and expertise, we are just talking about professions in another way or not. So maybe this kind of questions you should also propose.
Definitely, couldn't agree more. You can come back and question what we've put out there. That's not a problem. That's definitely. And I mean, as Alex said, it brings us back to issues around power, reflection, all those things again, which is why I think there's a nice fit between what we're trying to do and organisation. We've had some more questions. They're getting lengthier, actually, these questions as well. So The next question is an occupation that is skilled, e.g. trades, but not traditionally an expert, covered by the broad definition? I'm thinking about skilled machinists, for example, and the construction of expertise in the context of technological change. We're all nodding. I don't think I have a problem with that whatsoever.
That's the point. Yeah, I think that's what we are looking for, right? Is it or not? We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that is exactly the point. Otherwise, I think we'd have probably stuck with perhaps profession and tried to keep it in a very, which quite frankly is also still up for debate and up for grabs in terms of what we mean by that, really. But yeah, no, I've got no issue with that. I think that's quite interesting. Speaks to some of the issues that the call.
Again, I mean, like, exactly, it speaks to what we've just been saying about what does it mean to be critical in relation to expertise, right? So does the current definition of the experts include someone like a skilled machinist? If not, why not? Why are they excluded? You know, power symmetries here and discourses, and so I think that would be spot on. Would love to see a paper on that.
Yeah. Right, next question. We thought about focusing on corporate executives' changing role as non-experts stroke emerging experts in relation to their use of new data decision-making technologies, obviously kind of AI-informed technologies there. Does shifting power dynamics between corporate actors due to shifting roles of expertise and engagement with emerging technologies qualify as sufficiently critical? I don't mind going first and then others can pitch in. Inevitably, technology is raising its head, obviously, and that was certainly reflected in some of the submissions that we had to the sub-theme, and we had some really interesting discussions around it. I don't think we're anti looking at technology. I think the only thing I would say is that as long as there is also a critical, which seems to be coming through in what you're saying here, a critical appreciation of the technology in itself, so that we're not in that kind of deterministic, it exists, let's not open that box as well as the expertise box, then I don't see an issue. But I'll hand over to my other two editors to let them pitch in on that one as well. Anything to say?
I agree.
Okay. Oh, look at that. We're all in tune with one another. So yeah, I think with technology, the only time I can sometimes get a little bit nervous is if we're not unpacking the technology bit as well in a critical manner. So I think as long as that's being done, there isn't a problem with that whatsoever.
And again, it's timely and important. I mean, who is not worried or excited or both about AI at the moment, right? So.
Yes, it's affecting us all, isn't it? In various different ways. I'm not sure if there's anything else, whether we've dried up a little bit. So I'll just give it a couple of minutes. But we may be running out of steam. I was trying to remember the call, whether presumably we've got our contact details on the call. I can't remember.
Yeah, we do.
We do. Excellent.
We do, and they're coming up on the next slide as well.
Fantastic. Oh, we've had another one through. So what about the role of interpreting the answers from the expert? What do we make of that?
How do we interpret this question?
Yes, I think I might need a little bit more.
Tell us more.
I don't know if that's alluding to kind of experts engaging with other stakeholders or non-experts and that kind of thing. That is certainly part of the call and part of our interest as well. As I said, there's that kind of internal and external kind of element to this of how they operate amongst themselves and organise, but also how they relate to others. So yes.
Artur, are you interpreting the question? Was it your question in the first place? Do you want to talk? Because I think you're able to talk.
Come on, yeah.
Yes, I can talk.
Yay.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of experts tend to use a special lingo. They tend to use a special frameworks, and they come from the above to give an answer to the down. And sometimes this space of the expertise is subject to the interpretation, not to the actual expertise. So are we focusing on the voice from the above, or can we also address that interface between the voice of the above and the oracles interpreting it for the earth.
Yes, I would say, I don't know what the others two would, but yes, I think that interrelationship, because again, I think that paradox we've been talking about has meant that experts can't just talk to one another and just pronounce things downwards anymore. They are having to negotiate and be more in dialogue with others, and therefore that means, as you point out, an interpretation of this as well. So I've got no problem with that. I think that's an interesting dynamic that's emerging, that experts are perhaps realizing more now than ever that they've got to, I mean, we see it in the academic community, you know, that with the rise of impact, etc., that we've got to talk to other audiences and negotiate that, and the power dynamics and how we get interpreted, or, you know, those kinds of things too. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, well, no, I think I think that's right, and I think also it speaks to, we're not just reimagining the experts; we're also reimagining expertise, right? And what you're talking about there, Arturo, I think it's about re-examining, reimagining expertise. What does expertise means? It doesn't just reside with the experts; it resides with the sort of expert communities or network or whatever, and how things are done, and kind of. And also it speaks to the organizing expert and expertise themes. Yeah. So what happens to the words of experts? I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yes, you did. I was thinking in the roles of spaces, for example, the new emerging professors of practice, they are supposed to be academically qualified professors of practice, that they live on that interface, or people who learn to use tools and extract knowledge from tools.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yep. Okay, I can't see any other questions, but we do have a bit of time. As we were saying, we do have contact details on the call. So if after this you suddenly think, oh, they did mention that, and now, you know, I've lost my opportunity, you haven't, you're very welcome to get in touch with us. And as we said, if you suddenly have an idea, even if it is just a bit of a grain of an idea at the moment, more than welcome to run that past us as well, even if it's not as worked up as an abstract.
Great. So maybe I should show those contact details we've been talking about.
So.
Has anybody put the link to the call in the chat? Maybe it would be good to paste the link to the call in the chat, because that also has our contact details on it. Oh, Arturo, you're on it. Thank you very much. It is so quick. Brilliant. Let me just share the last slides then, and in the meantime, if anybody remembers anything else they wanted to ask, just jump in. Okay, I think it's this one. There we go. Yes. So just done the questions. Okay, so here are those contact details, right? So if you can either screenshot them or now, or as we said, there in the call for papers that Arturo has put the link to in the chat. So do get in touch. And another important, really important person whose details you might want to note is Mary Scordia, who is the managing editor of Organization, and who is absolutely wonderful at addressing more sort of like operational, technical submission questions. So you can also ask her about, you know, if there's anything mechanical or guidelines wise that you're not sure about. Again, she's a real person and really nice. Okay, so if there are no further questions, and I don't think there are, I'm going to just close and say, first of all, big thank you to CMS in Touch. I'm kind of wearing two hats today. I'm both CMS in Touch and I'm a presenter for the special issue. So I'm going to thank myself on both sides, on the CMS in Touch side and on the special issue side. But most importantly, thank my wonderful colleagues, both at CMS in Touch, who have made today's event possible. And behind the scenes, we have Munib, who is piloting Zoom today. And we've got Sarah Person, who's been handling Q&A for us and who's been live tweeting at the same time. Wonderful juggling there. We've got Arturo, who's been posting links in chat as well. So, and I would like to also thank my fellow special issue editors, Cara and Gabriela and Thomas, who is not there. So thank you very much. And thank you, the participants, for being part of the event today and asking your questions. So before we close, here are the forthcoming CMS in Touch events. Some of them, because we have a very, very busy diary going forward. We have busy December. So these are the 2 events that so far planned in December. More might appear. On the 7th of December, we have a really unique and special event, which is to celebrate 30 years of organization. That's the journal you've been hearing about today. It's to both celebrate the 30 years of the journal and also to actually collectively contribute into shaping its future and the manifesto. And it's going to be a highly interactive event, and you can sign up for it on Eventbrite. And then later in December, on the 30th of December, we'll have another special issue event, this one for Journal of Management History on critical biography as a methodology, which promises again to be a really, really fascinating. And again, that's available on Eventbrite to sign up for. Please get in touch if you have your own ideas for running a CMS in Touch event or want to get involved with CMS in Touch team. Please get in touch. Our email is below, cmswebinars@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, still stubbornly calling it Twitter rather than X. You can watch recordings of all our past events on our YouTube channel as well. And this recording of this event will be up in a few days. And again, if you're ready to register for events on Eventbrite, you can do so. But do get in touch with any ideas or suggestions or to volunteer to be part of the team. So thank you very much again to all of you for attending, and to CMS in Touch, and to our special issue editors. And on that note, that's all for now. Take care, stay safe, and see you soon.